Yo guys, Gluten-Free EDC here. I'm Brian, your gluten-sensitive representative. Today I have the Shocker, a model designed by Steve Dumchus. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. SDKnives. The OEM is Tuya Knives. They've been putting out some cool stuff lately. I've handled a bit of their work. This one is really fantastic. So we'll open her up. This one you could see has a DLC coated blade. Really, really nice how they brought out the grain of the grind into there, so you could still see that nice and clear. I like the finish that they did on the DLC here. Fingerprint magnet, but that's usually how it goes. The handle is in titanium, and it is PVD coated black to match the DLC. Pretty sweet. It comes in a bunch of different variants where it comes to finishes and colors, but yeah, really, really beautiful knife. I think this is really just good overall. So we'll kind of dive into it. So we'll go into logos first. So you have Tuya Knives logo on the blade right there towards the top. Then you have the steel 20 CV. Pretty neat. So really nice steel that they're using. And then we flip it over, you could see SDKnives, the SDK, right in the cutout for the lock bar relief. I think just overall placement is really good. Everything's on the lock side. It's minor on the blade. That's a nice spot for a logo, I think, kind of out of the way. And then on the show side, you got nothing. It's very bare. It looks sterile, clean. That is what I and many of us prefer. The blade is really cool. So it's kind of got this Bowie clip point kind of blade going on. Decent amount of belly here. Really deep swedge here going on. I think that's nicely done. And then this curve is interesting. So you have this curve, and for those of you that are familiar with Brian Brown puts out a knife called the Warthog. Very similar design in terms of blade. However, this curve here is really where it's different. So this one kind of comes slightly down to here and then steep up. The Warthog's not going to be like that. And then the cutout is a uniform oval, it seems. So that's going to be very different as well. And this thumb ramp, it couldn't be more perfect, honestly. The sharpening choil and the plunge ground are done perfect. Overall, I just think really, really well done. I did notice on this model in particular, the grind was a little off towards the tip of the blade. It's going to be hard to come through, but I'll try. So, trying to look through the camera as well. Yeah, it's not really coming through, but the grind is ever so slightly off. So you can see how it's pretty long there, and then not as deep there. So, I mean, Tuya, maybe the grind was slightly off for whatever reason, but yeah, slightly. I'm sure it's fine otherwise. Like, I'm sure it cuts fine and all. But just something I did note and figured I'd point out. Onto the handle, you've got these cool little cutouts. I like it. It's aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't cause a hot spot. I'm for it. I like that it's not like all the way through. I imagine, it's going to be annoying cleaning that out, but nothing that a toothpick or a cotton swab with some alcohol isn't going to be able to clean easily. It's certainly going to be easier than jimping, which is on almost every knife, right? So ergos wise, so it's actually, you have a difference in angle here, right? You have the thumb ramp, and then it is straight across. There's no curving here. Curves down very gently here. It's very rounded off here. You've got a little bit of a dip in here, which is really, really important. I'm going to go over in a second. And then a consistent curve here. Overall, really, really nice. So ergos is fantastic. For me, my pinky falls into this spot really, really well. I get in there. It's awesome. I can choke up if I want to, and back up everything or move everything forward a little bit, it is sharp right here. So I don't know that you want to do that unless you're going to do it with the tip of your finger for some really fine detail work. It's not the easiest one to do because of this Bowie type shape where it's kind of that clip point, right? So you'd have to go real far to get the tip of the blade. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue for something like the utility cuts, but you know, something that you want to get real fine with, totally, like it'll work real well. But the general grip that I'm going to have is back here, and yeah, really, really, really nice. Feels good in hand. The clip, it's a nice clip. I think what I don't like about it, so deep enough carry for me, for those that want like true deep carry, maybe not. It does get pretty thin there, so if you have really thick jeans, say like the hem on your jeans, it might not get all the way in there. I don't imagine that being too big an issue. However, right here, that is pretty sharp. When you're holding it and gripping it, you're not going to feel it. There's no hot spot at all. It's a small clip. It's pretty thin. However, this is pretty sharp, so you could really get that. So when you're deploying, you're not really going to feel it then. But with the thumb, my finger kind of like automatically falls there for me personally. And, you know, like when I'm going to do that movement, I want something to grip. So my fingers are going to land on that clip. So then when I actually go to deploy, I feel like I put more pressure there, and kind of a hot spot. Not a deal breaker at all. But, you know, I think maybe that could have been rounded off ever so slightly on the top, and that would have been nicer. But for whatever that's worth, I do think it's worth mentioning at the least. Now, probably going to middle finger flick this knife if you have this knife 90% of the time, because it is fantastic. The detent is set amazing. It's on the lighter side, but I really like it. And the sound, I'm hoping this comes through. I don't know, it just has like a very distinct ting to it. It just feels like that end, like that's the period at the end. Like I like how it's done. For whatever reason, that is big to me. It's like a nice small ting, but I don't want to say like light. It's like a thud. Clink. And like it's just like, you could tell it's like locked in. Yeah, so really cool. I like the action on this knife. I think works perfectly. You've got on the blade, there's the flat. I didn't mention that before, and it looks beautiful. I just think the grinds on this knife they work real well, and the DLC really brings it out. I just like the finish that they did on that. But backspacer, you have proud of the frames themselves, or the frame itself. So you could see it is sticking out beyond, and it has jimping, so that's going to add traction for your hand. Cool. I don't know that that's particularly useful. However, the jimping on this is perfect. It is perfect. I love the angle that it's going up on. It just feels right to me. And then the jimping is sharp. So they went with a squared off kind of jimp, pretty deep, fairly sharp, decent amount of space in between them. It really grips my thumb well. If I were to like run my thumb over that real fast, I'm sure it would like, you know, hurt, but you know, I'd have to push real hard, obviously. But for what it is and what it's being used for, I think that's really useful. Being the shape of this blade, you're probably cutting things in a way that you're going to want your grip on that to help lock in against here. So the two combine, I think that's just kind of perfect. Again, this plays into the whole bit of ergos with this knife that I just think are fantastic. So really cool to see this style type blade kind of brought to the market. I feel like Bowies don't always get the most love. If you can call it a Bowie, it's clip pointy, it's kind of drop pointy, but to me, it's got that Bowie kind of look. But action is crazy fall shut. Lock bar access is perfect. So he's got nice cutouts in there, and then you can see the milling done. So it adds a bit of traction, and I like the angle that he put there. Like, it actually makes sense where I'm pushing. I think a lot of people get that wrong all the time. So it kind of like goes out, and I really like that. So it's super easy to disengage, move over. It breaks here, and then, I mean, come on, it's super drop shut. I haven't done anything to this knife. This is how I got it from the pass around group. There is some milling going on. I'm not sure if that is just from the standard machining that they're doing, but you could see the milling underneath the PVD coating. That, again, I think personally is probably just from the machining, so maybe I'd like to not see that. It doesn't really bother me too much one way or the other. The pivot, I assume, is captive. However, I'm not certain. I'll drop something in the comments below. I hope that that is captive. That would be really my only concern for this knife, is that that is a free spinning pivot. That's going to make maintenance a little more difficult. But otherwise, really, really cool. Before I go, I do want to share real quick the case that it comes in. Like, this is really nice. So it's kind of like a Pelican style case. You got the Tuya knives. You got on the bottom, it says what it is. Really cool. And yeah, so I think that's just neat. It does come with a couple things. I'm not sure if, yeah. So it comes with a couple things. Little rag, little sticker thing. Not much to show there, but you know, standard case. I just thought that was cool that they include that. Like, let's upgrade over other ones. And then let's just do a quick size comparison. So we're going to do the quiet carry waypoint, because I do have the DLC coded quiet carry waypoint. This is a 3 1/4 inch blade, and I believe this is either somewhere around there. I don't really recall. Perfect size. I think this might be technically a 3-inch blade, but it's looking just under, if that. But yeah, I think great size. This is a great size comparison. I think overall length is almost there, maybe that 1/4 inch room. But another cool blacked out knife to show. And I can't have one of my videos without showing a custom of mine. So this is one of my David spec knives. Tiny little blade, but just a quick size comparison for you guys. The quiet carry waypoint is my go-to. And a real big one that I just got in from the same channel I'm going to have another video on is the Kunwu Chad. This is like a 3.7 inch blade or something. Like, it's big. This thing's large. But yeah, wanted to just do that comparison. I think it's a real good comparison to this guy. This feels pretty light, and that is actually because there are pockets in there milled out. Let me see if I can get those to show. Oh yeah. So you can see them on the inside. So milled out some pockets. Yeah, it makes it for a great weight. Just overall, great knife, guys. If you were on the fence about getting this one, I'd say pull the trigger. It's a sweet little knife. Knockout from Tuya Knives and SDKnives. That'll be it, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening, guys.